Hello everyone, this is your host, Sergeant First Class Arslan Khan with the Warrant Officer Recruiting Company. And today we'll be exploring the 351 Mike Warrant Officer Military Occupation Specialty. Our special guest is none other than CW4 Christopher Delgado from the United States Army Special Operations Command. And he will be talking to us about what it means to be a human intelligence warrant officer in the 351 Mike Warrant Officer Specialty. Chief, thank you so much for joining us today, and we are excited to hear your input on all the different ways that the 351 Mike Warrant Officer Specialty contributes to mission accomplishment. Glad to have you, sir. Can you tell us a little bit about your experiences as a warrant officer and how you feel about serving in your warrant officer specialty?
I've been very lucky in my Army career. As a staff sergeant, my battalion commander recognized my potential to serve the Army and strongly recommended that I should apply to become a warrant officer. I told him I thought I wasn't ready, and he basically told me too bad and to put my packet in. Well, 12 years later, here we are, as I've just been promoted to Chief Warrant Officer 4. I've been lucky enough to serve in Forces Command, Intelligence and Security Command, an Army Service Component Command, and now at U.S. Special Operations Command. I have managed tactical human collection operations and strategic human collection operations in Africa, Afghanistan, Central and South America. That includes support to special operations units. I love being a warrant officer. It has been the best thing to happen to me and to my career. I feel like I'm uniquely placed to provide that critical human intelligence expertise to the senior intelligence officer of the command and to the commander. Nowhere else I feel that I could be better placed.
For the potential applicant listening, we've asked questions that most of us have when deciding to pursue a career as a human intelligence warrant officer. And we would like to delve into some of these questions and get your take on some of the most crucial questions we all want to know. Let us begin by asking, what do warrant officers in your specialty do in a normal span of a duty day when they start out as a new warrant officer in the cohort, and how do those responsibilities evolve into more responsibilities later on?
After rigorous training and graduation from the Warrant Officer Basic Course at Fort Huachuca, most W01s will be assigned to BCTs at FORSCOM as either the S2X technician in the brigade, S2, or as the OMP chief at the MICO. It's highly recommended that new W01s get rated time of at least 12 months in both positions. As a W01, you're considered a technical and expert and leader in the human community. However, you must continue to learn and grow as not only a military intelligence officer, but as a human professional. There is much learning and growing even as a W01. You will do this by learning things such as how to plan and direct human training, build SOPs, train and mentor the NCOs and soldiers, and how to build relationships with your peers, your subordinates, your officers, and senior NCOs. Every day, your credibility is on the line, and you will be assessed not only by your soldiers, but by the NCOs that you must depend on to execute the tasks and assigned missions. Once you successfully complete your W01 time and hopefully commission as a CW2, you will get the opportunity to serve in other FORSCOM units, such as division or higher headquarters, or you may be assigned to INSCOM or Army Service Component Command, such as U.S. Army Europe, U.S. Army Africa, U.S. Army Central, and so forth. You may also get the opportunity to serve in a combat training center such as JRTC and NTC. I think the key thing with going from your initial W01 assignment to CW2 and higher is that the individuals you need to build relationship in order to do your job generally become a higher rank. So instead of dealing with, say, captains and majors, you'll deal with lieutenant colonels, colonels, and sergeant majors. The person you work for directly usually goes from a first lieutenant captain to a major or lieutenant colonel. I will say that as a W01 and junior CW2 in my initial force com assignment in the First Armored Division, I attended many meetings with my then brigade commanders, who both now happen to be general officers. So even then, I had to be prepared to be professional and give sound technical advice at all times. I have briefed general officers and flag officers from other services, and regularly interact with lieutenant colonels and colonels. So all human technicians have to be prepared to do this as they continue their careers.
Thank you for that insight, sir. Why should someone pursue this type of commission, and what are some of the benefits they take into the civilian world?
I think it's critical. As I stated before, warrant officers are very uniquely placed to be that linkage between the NCOs who execute the missions and the tasks, and the officers that direct it. And as I'll get into later, generally officers don't have the amount of knowledge on a specific intel discipline or a specific field, such as warrant officers. So when you're being asked a very important question that would potentially, impact a commander's decision, oftentimes it's the warrant officer is going to provide, that level of fidelity to say, hey, sir and ma'am, this is, these are your legal boundaries. This is what you can and can't do. And these are my recommendations. It's all about relationships and credibility. If you don't have that established, then, you're not going to be able to provide that message, and they're not going to take you seriously. I think, those relationships and credibility can have kind of a second and third order effect. You never know, that major or captain that you briefed or interacted in a positive manner may be a boss someday, or may choose to get out of the Army and become a DOD or DA civilian. They may get a job such as DIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency, as a civilian. And if you're looking to get out, after you complete your time, and you're looking to continue your intelligence career, you never know, the person on that hiring panel, may be, that major or that captain. So you already have an advantage knowing the people that work in those fields. The thing about human is the field is extremely small. Everyone knows someone who knows everyone else, if that makes sense. Getting certifications such as, Source Operations Course, SOC, Defense Strategic Debriefing Course, DISDIC, or Defense Advanced Tradecraft Course, DATSI, will enhance not only your current Army career, but can be used in a potential civilian human capacity as well.
Wow, that's great to hear. As a young staff sergeant working in the human field, what advice would you give them on what types of jobs they need to start working on towards, in their enlisted careers that will help them to achieve a commission as a 351 Mike warrant officer?
The biggest things I look for when assessing the potential of human NCOs when they tell me they want to become a warrant officer is how they do in their leading and training aspect of being a non-commissioned officer. Have they been an HCT leader? Have they worked as an OMT NCOIC? If so, how do they perform? How have they done in these jobs? What was their accomplishments? What did the team accomplish because, of their leadership? As far as training, what training events have they conducted? Have they led or acted as cadres? To me, the HCT and the OMT are the bedrock of human, and effectiveness in these jobs really stands out to me. If the young NCO has not had the opportunity to do either one of these jobs, then my job as senior warrant officer is to help him or her, and get their advice and recommendation, not only to the NCO, but also to the chain of command and the NCO support channel, and help them, as we continue to help and groom our NCOs. Maybe, that's the push that they need in order to get them give them opportunity to perform in one of these jobs. The other thing that I look at is the units and echelons that the NCO has worked in. I have known NCOs who have worked in a MICO, at an INSCOM, Theater Intelligence Brigade, at TRADOC as an instructor, or even NCOs at a command. I think it's extremely advantageous for an NCO to have worked FORSCOM and at one of these other echelons. To me, tactical collection and collection management has significant differences when you're looking at strategic collection and and how that is managed. Even an NCO who's had straight FORSCOM assignments, they're actually in a good spot. They generally have excellent experience either deployed or they have conducted multiple CTC rotations, and the CTCs have been really well done as far as how they're kind of interfacing human with the intelligence warfighting function and how that applies to the scenario. So, it's not only about experience, but also what type of broadening has this NCO done or had the opportunity to do? Because unfortunately, not all the NCOs have had the opportunities to work as an instructor or do something else. If I'm given advice and recommendation as part of doing that counseling, as whether or not the NCO has the required experience or needs a key job in order to do it, I see that as kind of my avenue to give input and say, hey, staff sergeant or sergeant, I think you need to look for this, and then your packet will be in a better position.
That's great advice, sir. What types of training can a young enlisted NCO benefit from when considering to pursue a career in the 351 Mike Warrant Officer Military Occupation Specialty?
I've already mentioned Source Operations Course, SOC, Defense Strategic Debriefing Course, DISIC, or Defense Advanced Tradecraft Course, DATSI. These advanced human training is very important for all soldiers and NCOs who are wanting to conduct a career in human. SOC is a prerequisite for human warrant officers, so that has to be completed prior to submitting an application to become a warrant.
What are the most common mistakes made by applicants applying to the cohort, and how can they be avoided?
The most common mistake to me is assuming that when a soldier tries to obtain that letter of recommendation from that senior warrant officer for their packet, that it's a done deal. It's either been, it's just a rubber stamp, or it's not a big deal. It is a big deal. That CW3 or higher senior warrant officer will make or break your packet. If you are missing a prerequisite or don't have the experience necessary to become a warrant officer, it's that senior warrant officer's duty and responsibility to be the honest broker for you. They're the gatekeeper for the cohort. So they have to be prepared to say, hey, Sergeant so-and-so, you're missing this, or you don't have enough, leadership or training experience. And that senior warrant officer has to provides very specific guidance and recommendations. Like, this is what you need to do in order to obtain what you may be lacking in that warrant officer's opinion. If anyone has any inkling or desire to become a warrant, they need to talk to a warrant officer that's somewhere in their unit or higher headquarters. Even if that warrant officer is CW2 or W01, they can provide tips and advice and help you connect with at least a senior warrant officer, a CW3 or higher to review your file. That's critical. If that CW3 or higher asks you if you have talked to your warrant officer who you work for, who's in the same unit, and you haven't, oftentimes that will kind of answer a lot of critical questions as fact, are you really ready to become a warrant? It's about building relationships. It's about connecting and getting that assistance And, talking with someone who's done it before, even if they can't do your letter, I think is critical for any NCO looking to provide the best packet they can possibly do.
Thank you, sir. When submitting a packet to the board, what do board members value the most? And could you help us to describe the process that takes place when your packet is reviewed by the board?
In my opinion, the most important documents in order of importance are the senior warrant officer letter of recommendation, the resume, and your letter that you do as part of the packet as to why you want to become a warrant officer. As I stated in my last response, the senior warrant officer is the gatekeeper and has to filter out those candidates who should not become a warrant officer. When your packet is submitted, it goes through a vetting process. It will go to what we call the OCME, or the Office of the Chief of MI. OCME will look at to see if that NCO meets the established prerequisite standards. The prerequisite standards, of course, are available on the Warrant Officer Recruiting website for each MOS, and generally are not waiverable. So if you don't meet one of the requirements, you need to take a look at what you need to do in order to meet those requirements. If you have any waivers, such as time and service, time and grade, a profile waiver if you've been wounded in combat, that all has to be approved by Army G3. And again, your Warrant Officer Recruiting website gives very good information on the different types of waivers that are out there that you may need. This takes time. It takes time if you have multiple waivers for it to go through and be looked at. Typically, a packet will take 30 to 60 days to go through the entire process, even before it goes to selection board, where your packet is actually looked at and evaluated completely. That's why you'll see the deadlines on the recruiting website as far as when the board is and when the packets are due. That's all part of that process.
Once an applicant is selected, how long do they attend Warrant Officer Candidate School, and how long is the training for the 351 Mike Warrant Officer specialty, sir?
Once you're selected for candidate school, the course that you go to will be scheduled by your branch manager, your career coach. The timing of walks depends on usually when the next seat available for WOBIC, or your Warrant Officer Basic course. Generally, you're going to attend WOX and WOBIC right after the other. So, you might graduate, say at the end of March, and then your WOBC class, your WOBIC class won't start till the 7th of April. So you get a week to travel. You generally will do this in a TDY status. So you'll go to TDY to WOX and TDY to WOBIC. WOX is about 5 weeks long. Currently, there is an extra week for in-processing and HHC. Again, the Warrant Officer Recruiting website has some good information on what to expect from at WOX and what you need to do for administrative requirements. And of course, during this current pandemic, there is some restriction of movement / quarantine requirements, so that may add some time in Rucker. Right now, the 351 Mike WOBC or WOBIC is 67 days long. It's a rigorous course, and it focuses on brigade and below echelons using automated and manual intelligence tools and methodologies. So the training we will get focuses on developing problem solvers capable of providing advice on Army human doctrine, management of human training, human collection processes, analysis, reporting, mission prioritization, and tasking systems, threat tactics, TTPs, doctrine organization, our current U.S. collection systems, and the military decision-making process. There's a capstone exercise that's integrated with the other intelligence disciplines that are attending. So you're gonna work with the analysts. You're gonna work with the Novembers. With CI, GON, all those folks. There's a lot of good information out there. If you have access to IKN, F4 Huachuca, ICO has really good information as far as what to expect from attending WOBIC and some points of contact.
Thank you, sir. What advice would you give to a newly selected NCO in your unit on how to prepare for Warrant Officer Candidate School and the Warrant Officer training they're about to conduct?
Candidate School is an officer producing course. It prepares and coaches, teaches, mentors, and trains, advises, and counsels candidates, preparing them to assume the responsibilities of a U.S. Army officer. All warrant officers are considered officers. WOX has to identify those candidates who fail to achieve the academic, leadership, discipline, character, physical, and mental standards expected of an Army warrant officer. So, again, the Army Warrant Officer Recruiting website has good information on what is expected at WOX. It's vital that candidates pass the physical requirements, such as foot marches, or the PT test. You have to come prepared and physically fit. Right now, the ACFT is the test of record, and even prior to the ACFT, APFT failures were an ongoing, recurring issue at WOX. So be prepared to come to pass the ACFT. Land navigation. Land navigation also was a hurdle for some reason. If an NCO hasn't conducted land navigation in a while, then the candidate should be brushing up on those skills. For WOBC, I think it's vital to brush up on basic human doctrine and policy, as well as MDMP, understanding FM 2.0, 3.0, and what the intelligence warfighting function is. The candidate, well, at this time it's a warrant officer 1, but the student will attend a Common Core integrated training where the intelligence warfighting function will be covered and how the intelligence warrant officer provides input to maneuver commanders. For basic human doctrine and policy includes base collection, interrogation policy documents from Department of Defense, Defense Human Publications, and so forth. If you don't have access to all of these documents, which most are classified, see your local human warrant officer. There are several sites available on SIPR, including an Army G2X reference site, which is excellent, and as well as at least 2 combatant command sites on SIPRnet, which both have an outstanding reference and policy section. Of course, at the end of your Common Core and then your specific 351 mic training, there will be a digital capstone that will integrate all those intelligence disciplines into a LISCO, a large-scale combat operations type of scenario.
Once you have been trained and pinned on as a warrant officer, do you have any input on where you will be stationed? And what is the process for selecting a duty station?
Yes, expect to go to a brigade combat team immediately for your first assignment. If there are assignment considerations such as EFMP or Married Army Couples Program, please ensure that you're enrolled appropriately and your career manager, your career coach is aware. Assignments are managed directly by your career manager coach. I am not one of them, and right now, I can't tell you specifics as far as where you're going to go, but all Army officers are under the AIM 2.0 as our assignments management process. So I would expect personal input beyond, of course, EFMP or MACP to be very minimal. Your career coach may engage you on this topic, but don't expect them to ask you. I generally let everyone know that it's going to be a FORSCOM BCT and to prepare for that. If there's any personal requests as far as a division, a specific division or specific duty station, always look to see, hey, what FORSCOM elements, what brigades are there, if applicable, and you may have a shot if you're asked for input. But again, because of the assignments process, which is very different from when I started, where I actually had some input, it is definitely something that, as warrant officers, we're all trying to kind of wrap our kind of heads around this process. It's fairly brand new. They're always making changes and updates and recommendations. So just be flexible and keep in mind that It may not be that first assignment, which may be desirable, but your options will open up after you complete that first assignment.
When approaching your unit officer in charge or the senior warrant officer for a letter of recommendation, what steps should an NCO take to position themselves in receiving a stellar letter of recommendation, sir?
So, like we talked about before, once you get to the senior warrant officer, you're not assuming that this is a done deal. Have your information ready to go. So have your NCOERs, your 1059s, have them available. Either hard copies or soft copies available. I like looking at paper. I like making marks and stuff like that. Have that ready for that warrant officer. Have your resume ready. A lot of these other documents are administrative in nature and not as important. Have your resume pre-built. Give them a copy of the resume. Let them take a look at it. They should be making honest changes, recommendations, on wording and stuff like that. Be prepared for that warrant officer to make phone calls. Especially if you have warrant officers that have been in your chain. Your rating chain is either your rater or senior rater. Be prepared for that senior warrant officer to call those warrant officers, ask for feedback. If there's any personal or professional issues with one of them, let that senior warrant officer know. Be prepared. Hey, me and so had some issues. It's not going to be it's better to be upfront with it, and then whenever the feedback comes, sometimes you could be personal issues, but that warrant officer says, hey, I think this person, even though I disagree with them on whatever, for example, I think they still can be a good warrant officer. I think honest feedback really is honesty. Don't try to hide anything. If that senior warrant officer gives you a task or due out, then accomplish that with urgency. Say, hey, I need this, or provide me the name of your last 3 OICs or whatever if they're not on your NCOERs. A good letter of recognition will focus on your technical acumen, so accomplishments, duties and responsibility, leadership capability, positions held, accomplishments. Are you a team player? Do you work well with others? I mean, these are the kind of things that the LOR has to address. The letter is only going to be 3 or 4 paragraphs, so everything has to be condensed into something, that's going to be less than a page.
Thank you for your advice. This is a 2-part question. When creating your resume, what is the best way to highlight some of the skills you possess, and what are the most critical skills to highlight? Furthermore, what are some of the most critical trainings to highlight?
The resume is a summary of your career, and you're given more room than your NCOERs to emphasize your accomplishments, but do not give fluff. Expand on them. What was the so what? What were the positive effects of whatever you did? What levels were impacted? What level did you operate at? What other agencies and services did you work with? When you attended PME or human training, how did you do? Simply graduating is often not enough. Did you excel? Were you recommended for advanced training? Did you make the commandant's list, or were you the honor grad? These are the type of things that which need to be highlighted. If you served time as a drill sergeant or as a recruiter, that's not a bad thing. But did you excel in these tough assignments? Did you show leadership and maturity? Put those in there as well. Just make sure you have the requisite human experience outside of those jobs. When evaluating your resume, your senior warrant officer should talk about that with you. Again, to become a warrant officer, SOC is a prerequisite. But don't forget to highlight those other courses that you may have attended in addition to. So DISDIC, JHATSI, other human courses. Put that in, or this will all kind of, build your training base, certifications base, and combine that with experience should complete your packet and give those on the board the chance to evaluate your resume and your potential to become a warrant officer.
Thank you for that information, sir. What are some of the most important certifications and training experiences warrant officers should pursue in the course of their career in this warrant officer military occupation specialty, and why?
I think as far as certifications and training experiences, I think all warrants should attend Defense Advanced Tradecraft course, DATSI. That is, to me, the most important advanced human level course that for humaniters to attend.
There are a lot of, let's just say, assignments or opportunities for either special mission units or special operations forces available to you if you become a year graduate of DATSI. In a couple years, DATSI will give you an ASI. So that's been a long time kind of coming, and I think that's only going to help. It's not required to be on your packet as an NCO. I understand that it's very hard to get into, of course, depending on where what units you were in and that so forth. So if you don't have it, have no fear. Not a deal breaker, but if you're given the opportunity to go as an NCO, I would take that opportunity. It's a tough course, and only those who are truly capable of doing advanced level human will graduate.
As a mentor in the cohort, what additional advice would you offer a potential applicant?
I love being a mentor. I have had the honor and privilege of having 3 or 4 different human staff sergeants who worked for me become warrant officers, and I think that is probably the best career accomplishment that I've been able to do. As a person who wants to become a warrant officer, it's never too early to have that desire. You can be a PFC and have this desire, or a specialist, or hey, I just made sergeant, but I see chief over there doing great things. How do I get to where she's at, or how do I get to where he's at? So it's never too early to have that plan. Talk to the warrant officer. Let them know. Talk to your chief. Hey, ma'am. Hey, sir. I really want some more information about, what you've done, how you've gotten to this position, how you interact. Ask questions. Let them know your interest. Then they can help you. They, as again, all warrant officers, our number one responsibility is to recruit our replacements. So we all have a critical role in identifying, those soldiers who will take our places in the cohort. If you know that you have to meet some prerequisites, so go to the Warrant Officer Recruiting website. Very good website, outstanding information on there that anyone can go to. Go there. You will see what you need to do in order to become a warrant officer, what prerequisites you need. Start working with your leadership now. Say, I need, I'd like to have an opportunity to be an NCO, to be in a, as an HCT leader or something, or to give you the leadership experience that you need, or it might be not just the leadership time or whatever. It might be, hey, then the next time that there's an opportunity for someone to go to SOC or someone to go to DISDIC, I want to be on that list. Of course, as all leaders should, and there should be, critical analysis done on those soldiers to say, hey, are they're right for these courses? Are they going to have the potential? Are they capable of graduating? So, you need to be an outstanding young humantor. Know your job. Your 10-level skills. You need to not have any disciplinary issues. To have the maturity. And then if you let your leadership know, I'm interested in attending these courses. Your leadership, if they truly are effective leaders, again, should tell you what you need to do in order to either, make the OML or how to perform. And, this is what counseling's for. This is what career development is. They can't give you advice or recommendations on stuff that they don't know about. They don't know about your desire. And it's okay. It's okay to have this desire as a PFC, as a specialist. Keep working. Keep doing your job. Focus on your task. Do the jobs to your best of your ability, whatever it is you're doing. Everything's important in some aspect. How you perform will impact how people think about you. Ask questions. Ask as many questions as you need. And then go out. Look for that information. Again, go to the website. I think that's probably my biggest advice. Go to the website. Get that basics, the base prereqs down that you're going to need, and then start working with your leadership and how to attain those.
Thank you for that advice, sir. For our last question, why should I choose to be a warrant officer as opposed to becoming a first sergeant or a sergeant major or perhaps even a commissioned officer?
I think this is probably the most important question. I'm kind of glad you waited until the end to ask this. It's kind of my closing part of this interview. And a lot of people don't really know what a warrant officer does. If they don't work in a branch or MOS that has warrants. You get all the jokes about being unicorns or whatever, and not all MOSs have warrant officers in there. A warrant officer has a very specific role in the Army. They are the technical subject matter expert in their field. So it could be in transportation, it could be logistics, PBO. There's varied warrant officers, allied trades, mechanics. They all have warrant officers who are the subject matter experts in their field. Senior warrant officers just have a mysterious ability to get things done because they're trusted by their senior leadership to give them the best possible recommendations based on their experience. A warrant officer is given that time to perform in their OS and become the technical expert. You compare that to, say, a commissioned officer who has to be a generalist in their branch, and they're often not given the same amount of time and experience in that particular MOS. So, like for example, for the MI Corps, you have an officer who's basic 35 Alpha, who has to know a little bit about all source. They have to know a little bit about signals intelligence. They have to know a little bit about geospatial intelligence, maybe counterintelligence, and then you got human in there. So, there's a lot in there, and each of these disciplines have very specific technical things that the warrant officers, it's their job to know this stuff. So you compare that, say, to the NCOs, and NCOs are extremely important. They're the bedrock of the MI Corps in general. But I would say typically once an NCO kind of makes Sergeant First Class, there starts to become a divergence where the Sergeant First Class starts spending more time in kind of general leadership positions, such as being a platoon sergeant or a section NCOIC, instead of working their specific MOS. And you have Sergeant First Classes who have the opportunity, be a NCOIC, in that MOS, and they're still working that. But as a platoon sergeant, you're often dealing with a lot of things that are outside of the MOS. As that platoon sergeant becomes, first sergeant or master sergeant, they start to become focused more on, the NCO aspect of the Army and being a leadership, and not necessarily so much on, hey, human intelligence or, hey, signals intelligence, working that job exclusively. As a first sergeant, sergeant major, that NCO is a senior enlisted advisor to the commander. So they look beyond MOSs. So there might be all of the soldiers in the company or all the soldiers in the battalion, or being that advisor, say as an operations sergeant major to the S3 as far as training, how we best do training, how we best do operations. Again, it's not focused on that MOS. Only the warrant officer allows the service member the time and the job assignments to focus exclusively in that MOS. The warrant officer, you're still a leader, you're still a trainer of soldiers, and then, in my opinion, it combines the best attributes of being an NCO and a commissioned officer. If a soldier wants to be a colonel, or general or sergeant major, there are paths for that, and there are critical roles in the Army, and they should be given the opportunity to become the sergeant major or become a colonel. But if the soldier wants to work exclusively in the field of human intelligence for the rest of their career, and then quite honestly, becoming a 351 Mike human warrant officer technician, that's the only path available. So I think that's probably a good way to end this interview. Again, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to provide some input. And if there's one thing to take away from all of this, everything I said is do your research and talk to your local warrant officer. Talk to them about what they do, and if you have any inkling or desire to become a warrant officer, talk to them about what you can do or what you need to do in order to improve further.
Chief Delgado, thank you so much for the privilege of your time today. We appreciate all the insight and information you've shared with us today. For those of you listening out there who are considering a career as a human intelligence warrant officer or 351 Mike, I have only one thing to say: go warrant now.